Don't just blanket assume that if they're a nurse, they're female, if they're a CPA, they're male. It's going to only be true part of the time. It's not going to be true all of the time. And your listener might get offended depending on who it is.
Most hosts never achieve the results they hoped for. They're falling short on listenership and monetization, meaning their message isn't being heard and their show ends up costing them money. This podcast was created to help you grow your listenership and make money while you're at it. Get ready to take notes. Here's your host, Adam Adams.
What's up, podcaster? It is Adam A. Adams, and I've been listening to some clients' podcasts recently, and I've really enjoyed it. One of the two podcasts that I listened to the last few days had a client who is a slightly older gentleman, not old by any means, so don't be offended if I'm calling you old. I think I'm fairly old too, in my 40s. But this client, male, in his upper 50s, lower 60s, and so still very youthful, got lots of years in him, sharp as a wit. But there's a reason why I'm telling you that he's a little bit older gentleman is because I have seen this happen many times with an older gentleman. And I've also seen it happen naturally with a lot of other people. In fact, I did the same thing. What did I do? You're asking. There was a time that somebody came to me and said, they said something about the nurse. Oh, I remember. Okay. It was a woman and I was talking to her. She works at a hospital. And she was very, very sick. I mean, she was crazy sick. She had a fever. She had body sweats, body aches, and she just was unwell. And she told me that she was going into work, into the hospital. And I'm like, what the hell, man? Like, how would you go to the hospital right now when you have body sweats? I mean, that is not okay. And she said that the head nurse, she says to me, the head nurse ended up letting me go home early. So I was like, why did you go? Then she went and all of these people would not let her go. And then the head nurse came up to her and told her to get out of there. So my friend left. And later she told me about it. I was like, I can't believe they made you go into work. She goes, yeah, but the head nurse came in, saw how sick I was, and told me to go. And do you know what I said immediately? And I feel bad about, like, I'm not going to say this again. I said, what did she say? Like, what did she tell you? And guess what my friend said? Said, the nurse is not a woman. And I felt like a dummy, felt like an absolute dummy, because that is genderist. That is sexist. That is making assumptions that because of somebody's role or whatever, that they are a certain gender, right? And I actually am glad that I didn't. Of course, I'm telling you on my podcast right now, so you know that I made this mistake. However, I'm glad I didn't make that mistake literally on the podcast, because it would be pretty embarrassing in that moment to show that to other people. But I thought this might be a good situation where I share with you how not to be sexist or genderist. And so my client, who is in his 50s or 60s, mentioned, hey, if you go and talk to your financial planner, he's going to tell you blah, 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 blah. When you go and talk to your financial planner, he is going to tell you blah, 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 blah. And look, we need to be cautious about these blanket statements. Now, if you're going to do this, and this is what I said to my client after listening, if you're going to use a gender or something, maybe default to a woman or default to the opposite, because you might get in trouble. Like my client might get in trouble for being a bigot or a sexist or something like this, because that episode went out live for his listener. And I'm trying to just say, be careful, be cautious not to do that. So here's what I do. If you're going to do it, this is where I was getting with that. If you are going to use genders or something like that, just say he or she, or just say she or he, or you go in and say, if you talk to your financial planner, let's call her Sarah, and then you can get in. Or if you might say, or go talk to your financial planner. My financial planner's name is Dave. So I would talk to Dave and he would tell me blah, 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 blah. So don't just blanket assume that if they're a nurse, they're female, if they're a CPA, they're male. It's going to only be true part of the time. It's not going to be true all of the time. And your listener might get offended depending on who it is. You might have a listener who judges you for it. You might not even know that you're doing it. So let's just take a step back, learn from what Adam did with this nurse, and learn from what I did badly with this nurse who was a male. I assumed he was a female for some weird reason. It's like, we shouldn't make that assumption. We shouldn't say that this person is a guy or a girl, or even a they, them, right? So we just never know what gender that person is going to be, and we shouldn't always make that assumption. So there's other ways to do it. I'm going to repeat, if you don't mind. What I should have done when I was talking to this girl who was very, very sick with a fever and body aches and body chills, I should have said, what did the nurse say? Or I should have said, what did he or she say? Something like that. And the same thing goes for my friend. They might say, talk to your financial planner. Let's just say your financial planner is Sarah and she's blank. And then you would finish. That's a couple of good ideas, a way to get away from that so that you're not being judged, and or because I think we all care to be judged, right? We all care a little bit. We pretend we don't. You're listening and you're thinking, well, I don't give a shit if somebody judges me. I'm myself no matter what. Probably not true. I'm just going to call you out. We all care at least a little bit what other people think of us. And I want you to know this information and go forward with it so that people can look at you without having the judgment, without passing random judgments that are probably not true. Because I know you're not sexist. I know you're not racist. I know you're not all of these things. It's just that people will think that if you use your words incorrectly. So be cautious, go forward. And remember, every other episode on this podcast is an interview episode. I've got somebody lined up for you, some information that you need to know about how to be a better podcaster. So don't go anyway. This episode was short. I'll see you on the next episode. This is serious. Don't go. Now that you've gotten whatever value that you feel that you got, the actionable takeaways, you need to implement the stuff that you learn. If you remember me talking about bird church once, and they learn how to fly, and then they walk home, I don't want you to walk home. I want you to fly home. So take the steps, take the actionable steps for your benefits that you can become a better podcaster. That's the only thing that I ask of you. And I'll see you for more actionable tips on the very next episode.